Welcome. Thank you for joining me today to learn about the Early Childhood Program Self-Assessment Documents. My name is Tamala Olsby, and I am an education specialist in the Early Childhood Education Division here at TEA. Let's first go over why are we talking about this? What is a self-assessment tool and how could it be used? Well, the major reason that districts use a self-assessment tool is to help them in their continuous improvement efforts. You know, the education field is always in a state of evaluating what is being done and improving upon it. The goal always being increasing the quality of our pre-kindergarten programs leading to positive child outcomes. The Texas legislature has defined pre-kindergarten quality in these 6 components: curriculum, student progress monitoring, teacher qualifications, teacher-to-student ratio, family engagement plan, and program evaluation. The mandates regarding these 6 components have become the baseline or the foundation of what a high-quality pre-kindergarten program looks like in the state of Texas. One of these components, program evaluation, is why the Early Childhood Program Self-Assessment Documents were created by TEA to give LEAs a tool that could be used for continuous improvement and to also meet the statutory requirement. And that statutory requirement is listed on this page. There are currently 4 versions of the Early Childhood Program Self-Assessment. Pre-K and K have both been recently revised to align with the HB3 legislation. And 1st and 2nd grade are brand new documents. There is also a guide, which we will discuss in further detail later in the presentation. And also on this slide, I've given you the link to these important documents. This slide lists the components that are part of the Early Childhood Program Self-Assessment in all 4 versions. The components include access enrollment, administrative and teaching staff, curriculum, instruction, assessment, learning environments, family engagement, and transition. As you can see, these self-assessment documents cover many important aspects of a quality educational experience. To complete a self-assessment that is effective, it is important to follow a detailed process. This process has several major parts. The first one is to collect data. This data will be used to complete the program self-assessment. The next step is to analyze the data. The data is analyzed to identify strengths and opportunities for growth. And lastly, the document is used to implement change based on the analysis of the data. So let's take a moment now to look at a self-assessment rubric. This self-assessment rubric is from the pre-kindergarten version. And as you can tell, it has the component listed at the top. And remember all those components I showed you? Well, this component, this particular page, is in the access and enrollment component section. It also lists strategies on the left-hand side. And these strategies are associated with the component. Then there are rating levels. The rating levels go from developing to proficient and then to exemplary. We want all of our LEAs to be in the proficient side part of the rubric, but there may be situations where you will find yourself either in the developing quality rating or in the exemplary. And lastly, there are indicators. And these indicators are descriptions of the quality rating for each of the strategies. The components, the strategies, and the indicators may be different, obviously, between the different grade levels, but all of the grade levels have 3 quality levels. Once every strategy in every component has been evaluated for quality, the results can be compiled on a compilation sheet, much like the one you see on this slide. This one is from our kindergarten version. In this way, once the data is all put in on this page, it is very easy to see overall results, things that an LEA excels in and things that an LEA can use for their continuous improvement plans. The next step in the self-assessment process is to identify strengths, to identify opportunities for growth, and to write out the next steps for continuous improvement. This page could also be used to communicate the results of this self-assessment to stakeholders such as parents, staff, and board members. So now you have been introduced to the early childhood program self-assessment documents, especially if they were not familiar to you. So now let's get into the how do you complete this process, especially for those of you that might not have used these documents yet. We are going to discuss 3 models: individual, committee, and subcommittee. These are models for completing the self-assessment. In the individual model, this model is usually used with small LEAs, and the committee would probably be just one person. It is the most labor and time-sensitive model for completing the self-assessment. The committee model would be used by small to medium LEAs, and in this model, the work of the self-assessment is broken down into parts, and it is spread out to various committees. This model would most likely require multiple meetings that lead up to an extended meeting where the whole evaluation document would be compiled together. And the last model is committee with subcommittees. And this model is for our medium to large LEAs. Again, the work of the self-assessment document is broken down into parts and then compiled together. It is a little less labor and time sensitive due to the larger number of participants, but it usually requires a lot more coordination. The size of your LEA would most likely determine the model that you would want to choose to follow. This slide describes the staff members who are best suited to working on the self-assessment. Of course, depending on your district or campus's staff, the staff members you choose to include in your self-assessment process might differ from those listed on this slide. These are just recommendations. This slide shows you a recommended time frame. You will notice in February, that is the time to identify the members of the self-assessment team and to conduct an orientation with them. In early March, you would want to choose a format. Are you doing it by committee? Are you doing it individually? And how is the work going to be spread out? In mid-March through April, you would want to collect all the evidence. And then in early May, you would want to complete the tool using the collected evidence. In mid-May, you would review the results and decide on your next steps. And then in late May, you would compile the report and share it out. We have only gone over the very basics regarding the early childhood program self-assessment documents today. Once you delve into the documents or the process, you are probably going to have questions. Our recommendation is that you first refer to the guide. It has been carefully compiled to give LEAs the information they might need to complete the self-assessment documents. But you could always call me, and my contact information is listed on this slide. In closing, I want us to be reminded of the real reason we do what we do every day. Our youngest students in Texas deserve the highest quality educational program that we can offer to them. Our hope is that the early childhood program self-assessment documents will assist you in your continuous improvement efforts. Thank you for your kind attention.